in California have been indicted in a federal drug trafficking investigation, and more than a dozen of them are from Louisville. According to the Department of Justice, 17 people from the metro were charged with meth, fentanyl, and cocaine trafficking offenses and firearms offenses.
Louisville, CAI, on August 6, 2024. A federal grand jury in Louisville charged a total of 37 defendants from across Kentucky and California in 5 separate indictments involving methamphetamine, fentanyl, and cocaine trafficking offenses and firearms offenses. The indictments were the result of a lengthy investigation conducted as part of the Organized Crime and Drug and Enforcement Task Force OCDETF.
Investigators uncovered a drug pipeline from California to Kentucky. Officials say it happened between March of 2023 and August of this year. Most of the defendants face a minimum sentence of 10 years in prison.
U.S. Attorney Michael A. Bennett of the Western District of Kentucky, Special Agent in Charge Sheila G. Lyons of the DEA Chicago Field Division, and Assistant Special Agent in Charge Michael Gannon of the DEA Indianapolis District Office, Special Agent in Charge Karen Wingard of the Cincinnati Field Office, IRS Criminal Investigation, and Chief R.D. Elam of the Owensboro Police Department made the announcement. According to the first indictment, 14 defendants are all charged with 1 count of conspiracy to possess with the intent to distribute controlled substances. Beginning as early as March 2023 and continuing through August 5, 2024, the defendants conspired to possess with the intent to distribute 50 grams or more of methamphetamine and 5 kilograms or more of cocaine. The defendants charged in the first indictment are DeAndre Williams, 40, of Adelanto, California; DeJuan Truss, 42, of Louisville; Ray Sean Spearman, SR, 39, of Louisville; Elmondo Elliott, 55, of Los Angeles, California; Desmond Knox, 50, of Menifree, California; Ray Sean Spearman Jr., 26, of Louisville; Brandon Arnold, 42, of Louisville; Antonio Arnold, 44, of Louisville; Dwayne Evans, 35, of Louisville; Melanie Sorrell, 45, of Louisville; Antonio Evans, 42, of Louisville; Devontae Hoskins, 28, of Louisville; Gardner Webb, 31, of Louisville; and Tanaja Lee, 23, of Louisville. Williams, Truss, Spearman, SR, and Elliott are also each charged with possession with the intent to distribute 500 grams or more of a methamphetamine mixture and possession with the intent to distribute 5 kilograms or more of cocaine. According to a federal criminal complaint filed in relation to these charges on July 7, 2024, members of the DEA Evansville Resident Office and Louisville Division Office received information from a confidential source regarding the possible distribution of large quantities of crystal methamphetamine and cocaine. Through follow-up investigation, members of the surveillance team observed a transaction between Williams and Truss at a Love's gas station in Shepherdsville, Kentucky. According to the complaint affidavit, members of the Kentucky State Police made contact with Williams and Truss and conducted further investigation. Law enforcement ultimately seized cardboard boxes containing approximately 252.9 pounds of methamphetamine and 12 kilograms of cocaine. According to the second indictment, 8 defendants are all charged with 1 count of conspiracy to possess with the intent to distribute methamphetamine. Beginning as early as March 2023 and continuing through August 5, 2024, the defendants conspired to possess with the intent to distribute 50 grams or more of methamphetamine. The defendants charged in the second indictment: Richard Borman, 48, of Owensboro, Kentucky; Joshua Stapp, 40, of Owensboro, Kentucky; Justin Riley, 41, of Owensboro, Kentucky; Bobby Douglas, 56, of Lexington, Kentucky; Jamie Voiles, 44, of Owensboro, Kentucky; Gregory Knuckles, 61, of Owensboro, Kentucky; Zachariah Nance, 44, of Utica, Kentucky; and O. Porsinski, 39, of Owensboro, Kentucky. According to the third indictment, 3 defendants are all charged with 1 count of conspiracy to possess with the intent to distribute methamphetamine. Beginning as early as March 2023 and continuing through August 5, 2024, The defendants conspired to possess with the intent to distribute 50 grams or more of methamphetamine. The defendants charged in the third indictment are Cameron Jackson, 24, of Owensboro, Kentucky; Damon McGuire, 29, of Owensboro, Kentucky; and Tyler Vinson, 32, of Owensboro, Kentucky. Jackson is also with one count of possession with intent to distribute 50 grams or more of methamphetamine, 40 grams or more of fentanyl, possession of a firearm by a convicted felon, and possession of a firearm in furtherance of drug trafficking. According to the indictment, on May 1, 2024, Jackson possessed a Trailblazer Arms .22 caliber pistol, a Taurus 9mm pistol, a Zastava Arms .762 caliber pistol, and ammunition. Jackson was prohibited from possessing a firearm because he had previously been convicted of the following felony offenses. On December 16, 2019, in Davies Circuit Court, Davies County, Kentucky, Jackson was convicted of manslaughter in the second degree, receiving a stolen firearm, tampering with physical evidence, and possession of a controlled substance in the first degree. First offense, methamphetamine.
A convicted felon is facing serious drug and gun charges following a disturbance call in Owensboro, Kentucky. Officers responded to a home along Surrey Drive West, but later located 24-year-old Cameron Jackson near West 9th and Frederica Street. Patrol units charged Jackson with assault fourth-degree domestic violence minor injury. Further investigation led to the discovery of over $12,000 in cash, a loaded handgun, a large amount of suspected fentanyl pills, and other evidence indicative of narcotics trafficking. The Owensboro Police Department Street Crimes Unit continued the investigation by obtaining a search warrant for Jackson's residence. During the search, detectives seized approximately 2 pounds of suspected methamphetamine, cocaine, marijuana, and additional evidence of narcotics trafficking. A handgun, 2 rifles, and a shotgun were also found inside the residence. As a result, Jackson was charged with the following: trafficking controlled sub, first degree, first offense greater than or equal to 2 grams of methamphetamine enhancement; possession of handgun by convicted felon; possession of firearm by convicted felon; trafficking controlled sub, first degree, first offense less than 4 grams of cocaine enhancement; drug paraphernalia by possession of marijuana. Jackson has previously been convicted of manslaughter second degree. Tampering with physical evidence, receiving stolen property firearm, trafficking in marijuana, less than 8 Oz, first offense, possession controlled sub, first degree, first offense methamphetamine. The case is still under investigation by the Owensboro Police Department Street Crimes Unit.
According to the fourth indictment, 8 defendants are all charged with 1 count of conspiracy to possess with intent to distribute methamphetamine. Beginning as early as March 2023 and continuing through August 5, 2024, the defendants conspired to possess with the intent to distribute 50 grams or more of methamphetamine. The defendants charged in the fourth indictment are Jason Salier, 50, of Louisville; Julia Parrish, 53, of Owensboro, Kentucky; Jonathan Hawkins, 43, of Owensboro, Kentucky; Jeremy Hawkins, 46, of Owensboro, Kentucky; Timothy Roach, 37, of Owensboro, Kentucky; Charles.
Now, well, Jordan, an Ohio County grand jury has now indicted the parents and grandfather of Maya Rudd, Tesla Tucker, Cage Rudd, and Ricky Smith, as well as another man KSP says lived at the residence, Brody Payne. Now, court officials confirmed their indictments, all of them but Tucker, indicted on 13 charges, including criminal abuse of a child, abuse of a corpse, and tampering with physical evidence. Now, Tucker was only indicted on 10 charges, missing out on those 3 gun charges the men all had tacked on.
Reynolds Station, Kentucky, 5 people have been arrested in the disappearance of an 8-month-old baby in Kentucky, according to our CBS affiliate WLKY-TV and WFIE-TV. On June 6th, Kentucky State Police opened a missing child investigation for Mia Tucker Rudd of Reynolds Station. Police believe Mia was last seen in the care of her parents, Cage C. Rudd, 30, and Tesla Tucker, 29, both of Reynolds Station. While conducting a search warrant and welfare check, police could not find Mia, according to Kentucky State Police. Police arrested Cage and Tesla on June 6. They are in custody at the Daviess County Detention Center in Owensboro. Telsa, Mia's mother, and Cage, Mia's father, were both facing initial charges of drug possession and abandonment of a minor, according to Kentucky State Police. On June 7th, they received additional charges, including several drug trafficking and possession charges, and child abuse. Police have since arrested Ricky Smith, 56, Billy Red Smith, 49, and Timothy Roach, 37, both stations reported. Ricky, Mia's grandfather, is facing charges including child abuse, drug trafficking, and having weapons as a convicted felon. He is in custody at the Daviess County Detention Center.
Maya's grandmother, Billy Smith, was arrested last night. Troopers say they were serving a search warrant to find Maya and discovered Smith had an active warrant out of Daviess County. The fifth person charged is Timothy Roach. Troopers say when they were at Billy Smith's home, they saw Roach throw drugs under his car. Important to note, though, at this point, this is the only connection he has to this case.
Charles Nelson, 41, of Utica, Kentucky, and Joe Turner, 46, of Owensboro, Kentucky. According to the fifth indictment, 4 defendants are all charged with 1 count of conspiracy to possess with the intent to distribute methamphetamine. Beginning as early as May 2023 and continuing through August 5, 2024, the defendants conspired to possess with the intent to distribute 50 grams or more of methamphetamine. The defendants charged in the fifth indictment are Diana Miranda, 38, of Owensboro, Kentucky; DeAndre Williams, 27, of Louisville.
Safety of our community. Today we executed multiple search warrants and arrest warrants throughout the city of Owensboro related to an ongoing investigation, joint investigation, including OPD, the DEA, and IRS. And on one of these arrest warrants on Farview and Todd Court, we were attempting to execute an arrest warrant and became involved in a standoff with an individual at that location.
Timothy Roberts, 46, of Owensboro, Kentucky, and
We begin tonight with developing news in Owensboro, where authorities say a suspect is in the hospital after an hours-long standoff. Good evening, glad you're with us. I'm Brandon Bartlett.
And I'm Shelley Kirk. Owensboro police say the standoff stemmed from a large-scale joint operation with the DEA and the IRS initiated across the city.
And SRT team. They were also on scene, as well as our negotiators, and we also had a DEA negotiator that assisted. And we worked jointly with this and worked together throughout the negotiations. Yeah.
Is on scene. That is a new update. They're trying to talk to this subject, but officers are surrounding every side, just about every building that we can see from the corner here. Now it is on.
Negotiations start right at about noon, or did don't start with the search warrant and then.
So our officers pretty quickly after being on scene made contact with him and were speaking with him. So it was pretty immediate.
Okay. It did appear to us like it was very quick once we heard a gunshot when we got.
That is correct. And once we heard that, we had medical standing by. AMR was standing very close, and they came by to provide medical care as well as our officers who are trained to provide that care.
And
Standoff lasted for 5 hours, beginning around 11:30 this morning and ending around 4:30 this afternoon.
Today, authorities say they attempted to execute an arrest warrant in the area of Farmview Drive and Todd Court when the suspect barricaded himself in a camper in the driveway of an apartment. There was a large police presence with guns drawn. We're told officers from the OPD as well as the DEA arrived on scene quickly, beginning negotiation with the suspect.
We were involved in negotiation with the individual for about 5 hours. And during that time, there were multiple times that he appeared that he was going to give up. And we come to the door. We maintained a good dialogue with him throughout this time. Unfortunately, the incident concluded when he was taken to the hospital with self-inflicted gunshot wounds. At this time, I don't know the status of him. I know he does have life-threatening injuries.
Henderson, Kai, WEHT, the Owensboro Police Department has confirmed that a man involved in a standoff near Southtown Boulevard and Farmview Drive on Tuesday has died from a self-inflicted gunshot wound. OPD identified the man as Timothy Roberts, 46, of Owensboro. An autopsy concluded that he died from injuries sustained from a self-inflicted gunshot. Negotiators with the Owensboro Police Department and the DEA communicated with Roberts for several hours before the standoff came to an end. Authorities say this is an ongoing and joint operation with the DEA and IRS.
Incident, this was from about 11:30 till 4:30 this afternoon.
Owensboro Police to give update after standoff, large-scale warrant operation with DA. Story by Jill Lyman. Owensboro, Kentucky WFIE Owensboro Police say they were part of a large-scale search warrant operation Tuesday. They say it was a joint operation with the DEA and IRS. Police were near Southtown Boulevard and Farmview Drive with a barricaded person for several hours. Around 4:15 p.m., we could hear a loud bang that might have been a gunshot. Around 4:20 p.m., a person was removed from the home on a stretcher and put in an ambulance. Officials were holding a white sheet over that person. The ambulance pulled away from the scene around 4:25.
This has been an ongoing joint investigation involving the DEA and IRS along with OPD. It is ongoing, so at this time I can't make any further comments as far as the investigation goes. I do hope to and anticipate having a press conference with those agencies as well as the Commonwealth Attorney's Office, hopefully next week, sometime next week, late next week. So at that point, we'll be able to discuss this operation in further detail. As far as this incident, it's still being investigated, and so I can't give a further comment on that. And again, he has been transported to the hospital and being treated for his injuries there.
Just learned a lot of new information. Like you said, we learned that suspect that police were trying to serve an arrest warrant on has been taken to the hospital with self-inflicted gunshot wounds and serious life-threatening injuries. Now, we know that we heard that gun go off and we saw the commotion of those officers trying to flag down AMR, which was luckily sitting just about a block away. Again, police say this was a part of a large-scale investigation with the IRS and the DEA along with OPD.
Just a couple small details. I know you can't give a lot of information, but from our viewpoint, we're looking at this, I assume it's a duplex, one on the left, one on the right. Was the individual inside the east side unit or the west side unit?
Okay, so I will say that he was not inside one of the units. He was actually in a camper that was in the driveway.
So they went to serve an arrest warrant at this home on Southtown Boulevard and Farmview Drive when the suspect barricaded themselves in what we originally thought was a home, but we were told that it was actually a camper in the driveway. Police say they were on scene for about 5 hours from 11:30 this morning to about 4:30 when that shot rang out.
I can't discuss any of that today.
One more clarification. I know you mentioned that this was a self-inflicted gunshot wound. Was there ever a point where officers discharged their weapons at all in this?
No. Okay, thank you for your time. Have a good evening.
Now, police say no officers ever fired their weapons during this incident. They say the suspect is still being treated at the hospital for those life-threatening injuries. Now, they say this investigation is still very much ongoing. There's still a lot of questions that they weren't able to answer, like why the IRS was involved or the exact nature of this investigation. But they said more information should be released here in the coming days, so stay with us. But for now, reporting live in Owensboro, Claire Dugan, 40.
Breaking news out of Owensboro. The man involved in a standoff with law enforcement on Tuesday has died. As we told you yesterday, an operation with the DEA and IRS led authorities to a home on Southtown Boulevard and Farmview Drive in Owensboro. After talking with Timothy Roberts for hours, hoping to get him to surrender peacefully, Owensboro police say he shot himself. He was taken to the hospital where he died. Of course, there's still a lot of questions about why they were investigating Roberts. Owensboro police tells us we can expect a press conference
in Davis County where law enforcement provide new information on a series of drug raids involving several agencies. Good evening, glad you're with us tonight. I'm Brandon Bartlett.
And I'm Shelley Kirk. The drug raids began last Tuesday near Farmview Drive with one man dying in the hospital after what police call a self-inflicted gunshot wound.
37 people are indicted on drug trafficking charges. 19 of them are from Davis County.
And Shalona Slaughters, 57, of Owensboro, Kentucky. 31 of the 37 defendants have been arrested or otherwise in custody. 26 defendants have made their initial court appearances before a U.S. Magistrate Judge of the U.S. District Court for the Western District of Kentucky or the Central District, California. 6 defendants, Jackson, Williams, Truss, Jeremy, Hawkins, Hoskins, and Bermudez, are currently in state custody and will make an initial appearance before a U.S. Magistrate Judge at a future date. The defendants have not yet been arrested: Brandon Arnold, Webb, Lee, and Williams. If convicted, each of the defendants, except Jackson, face a minimum sentence of 10 years in prison. Jackson faces a minimum sentence of 15 years in prison. All the defendants face a maximum sentence of life in prison. A federal district court judge will determine any sentence after considering the sentencing guidelines and other statutory factors. There is no parole in the federal system. Following defendants have not yet been.
Did you know that in the federal criminal justice system, parole is a thing of the past? That's right. For crimes committed after November 1st, 1987, parole is no longer an option. But what does this mean and how did it come to be? It all started with the Sentencing Reform Act of 1987. This groundbreaking legislation was designed to create consistency in sentencing across the federal system. The goal, to ensure that a sentence handed down in court would actually reflect the time served, removing the uncertainty of early release through parole. The act abolished parole for federal crimes and replaced it with a system of determinate sentencing where what you see is what you get.
The cases are being investigated by the DEA, IRS-CI, and the Owensboro Police Department, with assistance from the FBI, the Kentucky State Police, the Indiana State Police, the Louisville Metro Police Department, the Evansville Police Department, the DAE Evansville Resident Office, River City Drug Task Force Indiana HITA, and the Vanderburgh County Sheriff's Office. Assistant U.S. Attorneys Frank Dahl and Josh Porter are prosecuting the cases. This effort is part of an Organized Crime Drug Enforcement Task Force OCDETF operation. OCDETF identifies, disrupts, and dismantles the highest level criminal organizations that threaten the United States using a prosecutor-led, intelligence-driven, multi-agency approach.
Thomas W. Padden is a career federal prosecutor and senior executive serving as the acting director of the Organized Crime Drug Enforcement Task Force's OCDETF. OCDETF is a
few months ago, Attorney General William French Smith and his staff, in collaboration with the Treasury Department, put together final plans for a national strategy to expose, prosecute, and ultimately cripple organized crime in America.
The Organized Crime Drug Enforcement Task Force's OCDETF is an independent component of the U.S. Department of Justice. Established in 1982, OCDETF is the centerpiece of the Attorney General's strategy to combat transnational organized crime and to reduce the availability of illicit narcotics in the nation by using a prosecutor-led, multi-agency approach to enforcement. OCDETF leverages the resources and expertise of its partners in concentrated, coordinated, long-term enterprise investigations of transnational organized crime, money laundering, and major drug trafficking networks. Since the creation of the International Organized Crime Intelligence and Operations Center IOC2 within OCDETF in 2009, followed by OCDETF's inclusion in the President's Strategy to Combat Transnational Organized Crime in 2011, and subsequent specific direction in Presidential Executive Order 1377-32017, OCDETF's mission expanded to include multi-agency investigation and coordination of all forms of transnational organized crime. OCDETF is the largest anti-crime task force in the country. Led by an executive office and accountable for over 500 federal prosecutors, 1,200 federal agents, and some 5,000 state local police, OCDETF implements a nationwide strategy combining priority targeting, coordination, intelligence sharing, and directed resourcing to have the greatest impact disrupting and dismantling command and control elements of criminal organizations.
The Organized Crime Drug Enforcement Task Forces, or OCDF, was created by presidential order 4 decades ago, bringing prosecutors and law enforcement agencies together to attack the command and control elements of the drug trafficking organizations that were moving massive amounts of illicit narcotics into the country.
Prosecutor-led joint law enforcement component of the Department of Justice and is the cornerstone of the department's strategy to disrupt and dismantle the command and control elements of transnational criminal organizations. From April 2019 through...
Additional information about the OCDETF program can be found at www.justice.gov/OCDETF.
The strength of the OCDF program is in its governance. OCDF prosecutors in every judicial district lead OCDF designated law enforcement agents and analysts. In all 94 districts, we have groups that nest under 9 OCDF regional directors who, with supervisory agents, direct targeting efforts and manage resources, driving a nationwide task force towards national impacts.
Indictment is merely an allegation. All defendants are presumed innocent until proven guilty beyond a reasonable doubt in a court of law.
Good morning. Good morning. I'm Katie Winkler. I'm Deputy Chief here at Owensboro Police Department. First off, I want to thank you all for your patience. I want to thank the community for their patience. I know that there was a lot of questions after the operations last week, and we appreciate y'all giving us time.
The Owensboro Police Department says the investigation into a multi-level drug trafficking operation began in early 2023. Thousands of hours of hard work and street-level undercover work later, almost 40 people, half of which are native to Davis County, have been indicted through a Louisville grand jury on Tuesday.
I'm going to get into some details and explain some of the stuff that happened, and I'll hopefully I'll let y'all know why we waited, and just let y'all know the work that we're doing with the DEA. Beginning in early 2023, Owensboro Police Department detectives initiated an investigation of a drug trafficking organization operating in Owensboro. The investigation began with street-level undercover operations conducted by our street crimes unit. This case involved an additional suspects were identified. We coordinated with the DEA, Evansville office, the IRS, and to initiate an OCDF operation.
Mr. Patton served on detail to the Executive Office of the President, Office of National Drug Control Policy as the U.S. Interdiction Coordinator, USIC. In his role as USIC, Mr. Patton was the principal advisor to the drug czar on interdiction and law enforcement efforts to reduce the availability of illegal and dangerous drugs in the United States. During his tenure as USIC, he led the development of the National Interdiction Command and Control Plan, the Southwest Border Counter-Narcotics Strategy, the Northern Border Strategy, and the Caribbean Border Strategy.
It's really allowed us to put more and increased focus on violent gang activity in the United States. Example of that is an operation we started in 2016 targeting MS-13 gangs, working in the Northern Triangle, specifically El Salvador. That also led to a collaboration where we put agents through that experience in the Northern Triangle and El Salvador, helping address MS-13 concerns in conjunction with FBI and other partners. But it also led to bringing partners back to the United States from El Salvador so they would help domestically to address the gang problems here.
What OCDF does is it frees up some money for overtime. These operations are manpower intensive. We, being good stewards for our taxpayer dollars, our local taxpayer dollars, the federal government will come in and help us with overtime. With some of the resources that we have to move around for these operations. It involves officers that may be involved in are assigned to other units, ones that have experience in narcotics, and we'll bring them back in to work and assist in these operations. During the operations, detectives identified multiple.
State and local police and law enforcement officers play a critical role in OCDF, and it has from the beginning. We've always worked together.
Through an OCDF operation blueprint, we were able to bring down one of the largest and most dangerous dark web marketers, Alphabet. That's a great example of how OCDF brought together not just DEA, but FBI, IRS, CID, and ICE from the Department of Homeland Security, with many international partners to target a very dangerous online presence.
Mr. Padden worked closely with the Interdiction Committee TIC and the High Intensity Drug Trafficking Area HIDTA program to enhance HIDTA's role at TIC, and to develop fulsome interdiction plans and capabilities to identify and exploit drug traffickers' vulnerabilities at all points along the transportation space.
Individuals operating large-scale drug trafficking organization in the city of Owensboro, outside of the city in Davis County, and in areas surrounding Owensboro, Davis County. After identifying multiple key players with various roles within the drug trafficking organization operating locally, detectives expanded the investigation to identify our source of supply. We've been working with the DEA for around 4 years now, and we've talked about how the drug trade has changed over the years. How I worked narcotics, 12, 15 years ago. As a society, we're a lot more connected now. It's a lot easier for organizations nationwide to connect to establish the source of supply. So
it's truly the whole being greater than the sum of its parts.
Criminals are doing the same thing they did 40 years ago. They're just using technologies and new tools to be more efficient. Some of the most striking evolutions, I think, in the past 40 years, as far as financial crimes go, is that money laundering services have really evolved into a standalone business, separate and apart from the criminal enterprises that are actually generating illegal profits. And then most recently, with digital assets and the anonymous nature of those types of financial transactions, that's really evolved too over the past 40 years.
In 2024, drug traffickers have an array of digital tools at their disposal, making it easier than ever to connect, coordinate, and conduct their illicit activities. The rise of encrypted messaging apps like WhatsApp, Signal, and Telegram allows traffickers to communicate securely, minimizing the risk of interception by law enforcement. These platforms use end-to-end encryption, which ensures that messages can only be read by the intended recipient, not by anyone else, including the service providers themselves. Furthermore, the dark web provides an anonymous marketplace for the buying and selling of drugs, complete with user reviews and vendor ratings, much like a twisted version of Amazon. Cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin and Monero are the currencies of choice in these transactions, offering a layer of anonymity that traditional financial systems lack. Social media platforms have also become a breeding ground for drug trafficking networks. Platforms like Instagram, Snapchat, and even TikTok are used to advertise and sell drugs, often disguised as harmless posts or memes. Hashtags and coded language help traffickers evade detection while reaching a broad audience. Additionally, the gig economy has inadvertently provided new avenues for drug distribution. Ride-sharing apps and food delivery services can be exploited to transport drugs under the guise of legitimate work, making it harder for authorities to track and intercept these deliveries. 10 years ago, in 2014, the landscape was significantly different. While the internet was already a critical tool for traffickers, the lack of widespread encryption and the nascent state of the dark web made online drug trafficking riskier and less efficient. Law enforcement agencies had more success intercepting communications, as many traffickers relied on unencrypted emails and phone calls. The dark web was still in its infancy, with limited accessibility and fewer users, making it a less reliable platform for large-scale drug operations. cryptocurrencies were not as widely adopted, limiting the ability to conduct anonymous transactions. As a result, traffickers had to rely more on traditional methods, like face-to-face meetings and cash transactions, which were riskier and easier to disrupt. Social media was also less of a factor in drug trafficking a decade ago. While platforms like Facebook and Twitter existed, they lacked the user base and the multimedia capabilities of today's platforms. There were fewer opportunities to reach potential customers or network with other traffickers discreetly. The algorithms that now help content go viral were also less sophisticated, making it harder for traffickers to spread their message to a large audience quickly. Furthermore, law enforcement agencies were more focused on traditional communication channels and less aware of the potential for social media to be used for illegal activities. The gig economy was in its early stages in 2014, with services like Uber and DoorDash just beginning to gain popularity. This meant that traffickers did not have the same access to a network of unwitting couriers as they do today. They had to rely on more conventional methods of drug transportation, such as using mules or shipping services, both of which carried a higher risk of detection. The advancements in technology and the proliferation of gig economy services over the past decade have significantly changed the game for drug traffickers, offering them new tools and strategies to evade law enforcement. In summary, the digital revolution has transformed drug trafficking, making it easier for traffickers to connect, communicate, and conduct their operations. Encrypted messaging, the dark web, cryptocurrencies, social media, and the gig economy have all contributed to this shift, providing traffickers with more secure and efficient ways to operate. In contrast, a decade ago, the lack of these technologies made drug trafficking more challenging and riskier, forcing traffickers to rely on traditional methods that were easier to disrupt. The evolution of these tools has not only made it easier for traffickers to connect, but also more difficult for law enforcement to keep up.
Well, I think it's important that Secret Service joins OCDEF. We've been a part of it on the peripheral up to a certain point, but being now a full-time partner, we've always benefited from the criminal intelligence that OCDEF has provided, and their targeting of transnational criminal organizations that focus on the nation's financial payment systems will increase collaboration between the Secret Service and OCDEF and its other partners.
After we identified the source of supply, we determined that the primary source of supply was suspected to be operating in Louisville, Kentucky. Furthermore, detectives identified the source of supply to Louisville was suspected to be operating in California. OPD detectives assigned as DEA task force officers, along with members of the Evansville DEA office, traveled to California to conduct further investigation. Following the investigation in California, OPD street crimes detectives, task force officers, members of the Evansville DEA office, and IRS coordinated with the Louisville DEA, Kentucky State Police Drug Interdiction Unit, and Louisville Metro Police to intercept a shipment of narcotics coming into western Kentucky. The shipment was intercepted and resulted in the seizure of over 250 pounds of methamphetamine and over 25 pounds of cocaine.
Specifically, the investigation was able to intercept a shipment of narcotics headed into Owensboro. This included over 250 pounds of methamphetamine and 25 pounds of cocaine that officials believe would have been distributed in western Kentucky and southern Indiana.
The seizure was intended to be delivered to Owensboro, Davis County. However, it is very likely the entire seizure was to be distributed throughout western Kentucky and southern Indiana. This investigation encompassed thousands and thousands of hours of covert investigative work, multiple undercover control buys, multiple search warrants, and over more than a year, and ultimately resulted in last week's multi-agency operation that took place in Owensboro, Davis County, also in Louisville, Kentucky, and one search warrant that took place in Ohio County. Following last week's operations, OPD detectives assigned to the DEA task force and members of the Evansville DEA office traveled to Central California to coordinate the arrest of individuals involved in the organization there. Those operations took place yesterday. So that is part of the reason of why we delayed releasing any information because it took several days for us to make sure that we dismantled the entire organization to protect our community.
Officials also say this operation was about identifying key players in the drug trafficking rings to remove the entire organization.
I want to talk real quick about our partners and who helped us out in this, and talk about our people as well. DEA's Louisville office, Kentucky State Police Drug Interdiction Unit, Louisville Metro Police, Ohio County Sheriff's Office. They all helped in forcing this, and it's absolutely vital that we have the cooperation with them. But I do want to point out some key partners that was with us and did a lot of work. DEA Evansville office, obviously we've had an ongoing relationship with them for several years now. IRS Louisville, Evansville Police Department, some of the stuff that I think the community doesn't realize is how we work with our partners. Evansville Police Department, Vanderburgh County Sheriff's Office, Indiana State Police, they all have individuals that are assigned to the DEA task force, and they are integral in this operation and making sure that they're the ones that are there with us through everything, through helping our detectives, making contacts across the nation, contacts locally, and helping with these, covering buys, doing surveillance, everything that we do. I also want to point out, a lot of the stuff operates locally as well. Our Commonwealth Attorney, Mike Van Meter, and Assistant Commonwealth Attorney, Brian Katroki, there's a lot of paperwork. There's a lot of work on the back end that's done with this stuff. State search warrants combined with federal arrest warrants. The work that they do, we couldn't accomplish what we accomplished without them. Also, Western District of Kentucky U.S. Attorney Michael Bennett, Assistant U.S. Attorney Frank Dahl, and Josh Porter. Truly a cooperative effort, along with the other DEA resources they gave us. I also want to touch on our people, on your people, the guardians of Owensboro, and how proud I am of what our folks have accomplished. These operations take place over an extended period of time for us to protect this community, and that is, we have detectives, we have patrol officers, we have evidence collection technicians that are adjusting their schedules, that are working extra. We're still covering our calls, we're still doing our regular investigations, we're still covering special events and Friday After 5 and the air show, everything that's out there. The operations the Owensboro Police Department cannot stop. They put forth the extra effort. All of our people, search warrants last week, everything they was doing, the hours and hours of planning every detail of this operation, coordinating with other agencies in Louisville and in LA to make sure that we did things as safely as possible, that we protected our citizens, that we protected the officers, and we protected the suspects. I'm very, very proud of our officers at this department. The men and women here at OPD are second to none, and the community should be very proud of them, because I'm dang proud of them.
Now, during the press conference, the Owensboro Police Department and the DEA out of Indianapolis credited this colossal victory to the many men and women who spent over 1,000 hours trying to achieve a safer environment for the many communities across the country.
Some key points that I want to point out. As a society, we have to recognize that as long as there is a demand for controlled substance, as long as there is addiction out there, that there are going to be people that choose to prey on those addicts. We cannot eliminate drug trafficking alone. It's important that we understand that we have to step up our game, not just in Owensboro, but as a society in this country, in treating addiction to stop this problem. The drug trade has evolved with technology. It's not like it was years ago. We have to understand that the only way that we can stop this, it's not going to be hitting a door, putting out a press release with some pictures, and calling it a day.
Particular technology is moving in a way which is going to make it harder for everyone if we don't keep upping our game. It's going to make it harder to find the bad guy. It's going to make it harder to find the evidence, follow the money, disrupt the threat. And these are challenges that cut really across all law enforcement programs. I'm talking about warrant-proof encryption and our ability to access the electronic evidence that we need lawfully. I'm talking about cryptocurrency and the ability to follow the money. And I'm talking about ubiquitous technical surveillance and our ability to recruit and retain human sources. Put those three things together, and it's going to be a challenge for OCDEF, just like it is for law enforcement everywhere, to disrupt threats. So we have to keep innovating, we have to keep doubling down, tripling down on the partnerships that we have, and trying to think about where the threats are going to be 5, 10, 15 years from now. Not just
going to have to change our tactics, and we are with the DEA helping us out. We're getting there, and we're having an impact.
Officials say the IRS helped them explore financial investigative leads. And Deputy Winkler says the drug trade has advanced over the past decade, and he spent the past 4 years working with the DEA to learn more.
It's our community, but I want our citizens to know that the men and women of this department, we will use every resource available to protect our community from predators that want to use our citizens, use our vulnerable citizens to profit off of. There's not a treatment for addiction to power and money and influence over the vulnerable, and we're not going to tolerate it.
They have hundreds of millions of dollars, even billions of dollars in wealth. They have their own armies. They threaten the peace and stability of whole nations. We cannot allow them to strengthen themselves in the United States, to bring in more and more addictive substances that destroy American lives.
I'm going to cover. I want to send a message to drug trafficking organizations, individuals that may think that they want to push this product for money and power in our community. Locally, we're not going to stop. We are going to stay in the game, and we're going to continue to dismantle these organizations from the top to the bottom. I also want to send a message. I know most of the media here is local, but I also want to send a message to nationally, all the way to the drug cartels. It's not good business to have any contacts or any operation in Owensboro, Kentucky, and I want everybody to understand that you run the risk of compromising your freedom if you deal with anybody in Owensboro, Kentucky, because we will come. We will use every resource available to dismantle your organization from the top to the bottom. That's all that I have. We will open it up for some questions about 5 minutes.
Owensboro Police Department did also mention that their efforts will not stop in trying to really diminish even more drug trafficking rings in the area, and that this is only just the beginning. Reporting live in Owensboro, Amy Fazenbaker, 44 News.
Professionals of OCDETF have harnessed the resources and expertise of agencies across the country and across all levels of government to collect critical intelligence, build better cases, and take apart transnational criminal organizations. This work is difficult and time-consuming. It calls for constant adaptation in our responses to the ever-changing tactics of complex criminal networks.
But I'd like to introduce Special Agent in Charge, Michael Gannon of the DEA Indianapolis office. And I can't say enough how much I appreciate what they have done for us and the cooperation that they have with us to help us protect this community and be guardians of this community. So,
thank you. Deputy Chief JD, those remarks were just outstanding. So I'll try to do half as good as what you just put out there. It was incredible. Thank you all for being here today. It's very important that we have the opportunity to come up here and just kind of talk about the OCDETF investigation that we've conducted for the last several months, over 5 months. And really, it's been out in the courts now that we were involved with wiretapping this organization. And
since June 2008, Mr. Padden has served as OCDETF's Deputy Director, providing leadership continuity to the program's priority targeting, intelligence and information sharing, coordination sharing, and directed resourcing efforts in support of the multi-agency mission to disrupt, degrade, and dismantle transnational criminal networks that pose priority threats to the United States, under OCDETF governance and in partnership with the 93 U.S. attorneys, 19 multi-agency strike forces, and approximately 5,000 case-specific OCDETF task forces conduct coordinated, intelligence-driven investigations and prosecution of criminal networks. Mr. Padden's focus upon intelligence and information sharing and his support of the OCDETF Fusion Center and OCDETF's International Organized Crime Intelligence and Operations Center IOC2 has helped to drive the expansion of relevant data at those centers, allowing for more complete illumination of criminal network threats. Before his assignment as the OCDETF Deputy Director, Mr. Padden served in senior executive leadership positions within DOJ at the National Drug Intelligence Center, NDIC, and the Criminal Division's Narcotic and Dangerous Drugs Section, NDDS. At NDIC, he served as the center's Deputy Director and as its Assistant Director of Intelligence, leading the production of strategic intelligence reporting and threat assessments. At NDIC, he led the expansion of the center's document and media exploitation DOMEX efforts in support of OCDETF operations, including the integration of NDIC DOMEX teams into selected OCDETF co-located strike forces. During his time at NDDS, Mr. Padden served in a progression of leadership positions after starting as a line prosecutor who led investigations of major Mexican and South American drug trafficking networks. He served as one of the first coordinating prosecutors and later as the deputy chief at the Multi-Agency Special Operations Division SOD. At SOD, he handled the intelligence-based targeting of drug trafficking and narco-terrorist organizations and coordinated the resulting multi-jurisdiction, multinational wiretap investigations. He also served as NDDS's deputy chief for litigation, leading the bilateral case initiative BCI targeting drug cartel leadership using Title 21, Sections 959 and 960. After his service as a deputy chief, he was appointed to the senior executive service and served as the section's principal deputy chief and acting chief.
So proud about is we identified all the individuals that were responsible for, terrorizing our community here in Owensboro. We were able to get that information and understand that there were other sources that provide dope, right? And we understood that there were people in Louisville, and we were able to collaborate with our DEA Louisville office, and we were able to identify those people. And you heard the deputy chief talk about it earlier. Because of the work that was put into this case and the incredible work that was done with all the law enforcement partners that worked this investigation, we identified our job is to keep going out there and keep identifying who's the one that's responsible for it. And you heard him talk about that we had sources out in California. And as we were working this whole organization, we were able to work it with the Orange County DEA District Office and really identify the people that were responsible for sending all this methamphetamine into our community. So everybody can understand that as we work a case like that, hours and hours of work, day after day after day, weeks after weeks, we're going out each and every day to try to make our community a safer, better place. You just have to applaud the people that worked this investigation and went after it as hard as they did. And they're able to identify a whole network of people. And in the last week, we went out there and we made our arrests and stuff like that, and we indicted 37 people. Of the 37 people, 34 are in custody at this moment. There's a few fugitives that we're collaborating with the marshals to arrest, but just a very impressive takedown that was worked obviously with the Western District of Kentucky United States Attorney's Office. But some of the highlights in the case were we were able to identify a shipment that was coming in that was going to obviously, you heard the deputy chief talk, be in the Kentucky and Indiana area, and it was over 252 pounds of methamphetamine, and that's the illustration there with the kilogram quantities of cocaine. So very good to get that off the street. And the reality is, when you talk about drug dealers and you talk about their organization and the people that are responsible for putting this poison into our community, they just don't care about people. All they care about is making money. And some of the highlights in this investigation, we believe we've seized several $100,000. We're waiting for an official count on the money on that. We also seized about 30 firearms in this investigation that were taken off the street, and just significant enforcement operations that were conducted last week. And we conducted over 25 search warrants to fully dismantle this organization. And I'm very proud of the work, and I know firsthand how hard the Owensboro Police Department works and the manpower they put forward to make this investigation a successful investigation. And we're very grateful for you guys for that. Also, very grateful for we talked a little bit about the partners that helped out. We had IRS helping us out in this investigation as well. And we had
The IRS plays a crucial role in tracking traffickers and dismantling their operations by leveraging its expertise in financial investigations. Traffickers often try to hide their illegal profits through complex money laundering schemes, and the IRS Criminal Investigation Unit is adept at tracing these financial activities. By following the money trail, they can uncover hidden assets, shell companies, and offshore accounts, which are often used to legitimize illicit earnings. This financial scrutiny not only identifies key players in trafficking networks, but also disrupts the flow of illegal funds, making it harder for these operations to thrive. Additionally, the IRS collaborates with other law enforcement agencies, sharing financial intelligence that can lead to the identification of entire trafficking networks. Through forensic accounting and detailed audits, they can expose the financial underpinnings of criminal enterprises. This collaborative approach ensures that traffickers are not only caught for their direct criminal activities, but also for tax evasion and financial crimes, adding another layer of legal consequences that can lead to more significant convictions and longer sentences. In a fun twist, you could think of the IRS as the ultimate financial detective, following the breadcrumbs of dirty money right to the heart of criminal enterprises. By unraveling the financial webs traffickers weave to cover their tracks, the IRS helps pull apart entire operations, leaving traffickers with no safe place to hide their ill-gotten gains. How money laundering works. Money laundering is like trying to wash dirty clothes, except in this case, it's dirty money. Traffickers use a series of complex transactions to move illegal money through the financial system, mixing it with legitimate funds so it looks clean and legal by the time it comes out the other side. It's a way to disguise the origins of the money, making it look like it was earned through legitimate means, even though it wasn't. Money laundering works by passing illegal money through a series of complex transactions that obscure its origin. First, the money enters the financial system through deposits or buying assets. Then, it's moved around in various ways, like through shell companies or offshore accounts, to mix it with legitimate funds. Finally, the clean money emerges, seemingly from a legitimate source, making it difficult for authorities to trace it back to criminal activities. Money laundering works by moving illegal money through various transactions to hide its criminal origins. It's like passing dirty money through a maze, where each turn makes it harder to trace back to the crime. Example: the Gambino crime family and John Gotti. John Gotti, the infamous leader of the Gambino crime family, masterfully used money laundering to sustain and grow his criminal empire throughout the 1980s. Gotti and his associates funneled their illegal profits from drug trafficking, extortion, and other illicit activities through a network of legitimate businesses. These businesses, such as construction companies, restaurants, and nightclubs, served as fronts, blending dirty money with legitimate revenue, making it difficult for authorities to trace the origins of the funds. One of the key tactics Gotti employed was using cash-heavy businesses where large sums of money could be moved without raising suspicion. For instance, the construction industry, known for handling large cash transactions, was ideal for masking the origins of illicit funds. These operations allowed the Gambino family to pay employees, invest in more criminal activities, and continue their operations under the radar of law enforcement. Gotti's ability to evade prosecution earned him the nickname the Teflon Don, as charges against him would often fail to stick in court. This was largely due to the complex web of financial transactions that concealed the true source of the Gambino family's wealth. It wasn't until the FBI and IRS launched in-depth investigations into Gotti's financial activities that they could untangle the money laundering schemes. In 1992, Gotti's luck ran out. The evidence gathered from years of investigation led to his conviction on multiple charges, including murder, racketeering, and money laundering. The conviction marked the end of Gotti's reign and demonstrated the critical role that financial investigations play in taking down powerful criminal organizations. The IRS played a pivotal role in the downfall of John Gotti by meticulously investigating the financial underpinnings of his criminal empire. The IRS Criminal Investigation Division (IRS-CI) focused on uncovering the complex money laundering schemes that Gotti used to hide the proceeds of his illegal activities. By analyzing tax records, bank statements, and financial transactions, the IRS was able to piece together how Gotti funneled money through legitimate businesses, paying attention to inconsistencies and unexplained wealth that couldn't be justified by legal income. One of the key tactics the IRS used was tracking the money flowing through businesses tied to the Gambino family. They scrutinized the tax returns of these businesses, looking for signs of underreported income or suspicious financial activities. This kind of forensic accounting allowed the IRS to build a strong case against Gotti, showing that the income being reported didn't match the lavish lifestyle he led. The IRS's investigation was crucial in providing the financial evidence needed to support the charges of racketeering and money laundering. While the FBI handled much of the surveillance and criminal investigation, the IRS-CI's role in following the money was instrumental in breaking through the layers of protection that Gotti had built around his operations. The financial evidence gathered by the IRS helped ensure that the charges stuck in court, ultimately leading to Gotti's conviction and the dismantling of a significant portion of the Gambino crime family's operations.
On a lot of DEA resources. When we conducted our enforcement operations just last week, we had members of the DEA Chicago Field Division that came down, agents from the DEA Indianapolis office, agents from the DEA Terre Haute office, the DEA Evansville office, DEA St. Louis Division, DEA Louisville Division. And then, of course, when you have those people come in and you're doing significant operations in their areas, you rely on the local partners as well. So can't thank them enough for the work, because we would never be able to have the success that we have in our investigations if you don't have the buy-in by everybody trying to go out and make our community a safer, better place. And I think the Deputy Chief hit it so well. We have to rely on the community to get the prevention and awareness and help for people that are using drugs. We have to do it.
Supporting sober living and preventing drug addiction involves a multifaceted approach that includes education, support, community involvement, and access to resources. Here's a guide on how to help keep people away from drugs and prevent more drug addiction. 1. Education and awareness. Educate about risks, share information about the dangers and consequences of drug use, including the impact on health, relationships, and life goals. Promote healthy alternatives, encourage participation in activities that promote well-being, such as sports, hobbies, volunteering, and creative pursuits. Support school programs, engage with local schools to implement or support drug education programs that teach kids about the risks of drug use. 2. Community support and involvement. Create a safe environment, develop a safe and supportive community where individuals can share their experiences and struggles without judgment. Host community events, organize sober activities and events to promote healthy social interactions without the presence of drugs or alcohol. Mentorship programs pair individuals in recovery with mentors who can provide guidance, support, and encouragement. 3. Providing resources. Access to counseling. Make sure that individuals have access to counseling and therapy to address underlying issues that may contribute to drug use. Support groups encourage participation in support groups like Narcotics Anonymous, NA, Alcoholics Anonymous, AA, or other peer support groups. Hotlines and helplines provide easy access to hotlines where people can get immediate help, advice, and support. 4. Prevention strategies. Early intervention. Identify and address risk factors early, such as mental health issues, trauma, or family history of addiction. Build strong relationships, foster strong, supportive relationships with family, friends, and community members to create a network of accountability and care. Promote mental health, encourage practices that support mental health, such as mindfulness, exercise, and regular mental health checkups. Helpful numbers. Here are some important numbers that can be provided to those who might need them. SAMHSA National Helpline 1-800-662 help 4,357. We're free, confidential, 24/7 treatment referral and information service. National Suicide Prevention Lifeline 1-800-273 talk 8,255 provides 24/7 support for people in distress and resources for prevention and crisis situations. Crisis text line, text home to 741,741. Free 24/7 support for those in crisis via text message. National Drug Helpline 1-844-289-0879 provides support for drug and alcohol related issues. Alcoholics Anonymous AA visit the AA website for local meeting information. Narcotics Anonymous NA visit the NA website for local meeting information. Local resources provide contacts for local rehab centers, counseling services, and community organizations that offer support. 5, advocacy and policy. Support drug prevention policies, advocate for policies that focus on prevention, education, and treatment rather than punishment. Partner with law enforcement, work with local law enforcement to create community programs that focus on rehabilitation rather than incarceration. Promote access to healthcare, ensure that individuals have access to healthcare, including mental health services, which can be critical in preventing drug addiction. 6, personal involvement. Lead by example, live a sober and healthy lifestyle, and be open about your journey to inspire others. Stay connected, maintain regular contact with those who might be at risk, offering your support and understanding. Encourage responsibility, help individuals take responsibility for their actions and choices, empowering them to make positive changes. By combining these strategies, you can play a significant role in helping others stay away from drugs, prevent more drug addiction, and provide crucial support to those in need.
And I always like to talk about a special quote that John Wooden, the legendary basketball coach, once said, "You can't live a perfect day until you've done something for someone who can never repay you." And for me, it's so important for people that have things going good in your life to help someone that doesn't and get them the necessary help and resources out there. And it's a community that has to come together to want to do that. And we have to, encourage people to stay away from drugs. And I talk about it often. And in this investigation, we highlighted the methamphetamine and the cocaine was seized. We did also seize fentanyl as well. And obviously, that's plaguing our country and of course our communities. And it's so important for people to understand, there's never been a worse time in our country to use drugs than there is right now. And I don't think a lot of people understand that when drugs come into our country, there are many organizational members that will distribute drugs before they hit the streets here in Owensboro, Kentucky. And each time somebody's packaging drugs for distribution, they put whatever they want in it. And that's the scary thing. I mean, we've seized pill presses in our investigations. We've seized things where people are trying to manufacture their own drugs. We see fentanyl constantly, and they can add that to anything they want. They can add that into methamphetamine. They can add that into cocaine. They can make that pills that look like legitimate pharmaceutical pills that they're putting in. So my message to the community and people that can look to go out and help someone do that, and then have that conversation with your loved ones, because drugs are destroying our community. And if you look at the numbers on a national level, there was 112,000 overdose deaths last year. And I always say one is one too many. So we really have to keep working on that. As far as our enforcement operations go, we're going to continue to do what we do. Obviously, we had that takedown on this investigation, but for us, an investigation's never over till it goes through the court process. And obviously, the individuals that are being charged are innocent till they're proven guilty, and we will work as hard as we did to make this case go through the court system and seek an outcome that hopefully we're looking for. But we will continue to work hard and see this case through.
And OCDEP provides that forum in which law enforcement agencies can collaborate and prosecute those threats.
I think as an organization, the Bureau is deeply committed to the idea that partnerships are how we achieve our best successes, and it runs throughout the whole organization, but the OCDEP program is a particularly strong example of that. The reality is that in a partnership of different federal agencies, and particularly with state and local law enforcement, allows us to better share intelligence, cooperators, witnesses, and build better cases and have better success.
The other people that are out there and think they're going to step up and continue to distribute drugs in our communities, your day will come as well, and we're going to continue to get out there and keep working hard. So just want to appreciate you all. Thank you all for being here, and just so glad to be a part of the investigation. So that's all I have. Thank you.
I was late. Can one microphone Sam?
Yes, sir. Yeah, that's fine, sir. So we got about 5 minutes for some questions, and again, I want to say thank you because I know our PIO he has a tough job, and I know that y'all have a lot of questions after last week's operations, and I appreciate y'all giving us the time to get this. I appreciate y'all. Appreciate the community's patience and the media's patience, especially. But yes, sir.
So you said you seized a couple 100 pounds of drugs. Do you know approximately how much of that was coming into Owensboro, County? Or?
Total, I think we seized, that one was 250, I'm sorry. That one was 250 pounds. I think total is a little over 270 pounds that are seized through various vials at Owensboro. I don't know off the top of my head the exact amount that was coming here. I do know that it was destined for here, a portion of it. And it was, honestly, it was coming, being distributed to all of Western Kentucky, all the communities around Western Kentucky and Southern Indiana, from what I understand.
Yeah, there's no question. When you have a big load of drugs come in, people are getting different amounts and different quantities of the drugs, and then they're getting distributed. There's no question about it.
Yes, sir. The person in front of the drive, what was his connection in all this?
He was one of the individuals that was federally indicted in this investigation, sir.
What was the IRS involved in this investigation?
Yeah, great question. I'm sure that was a lot of people were asking that last week. When we have an organized crime drug enforcement task force investigation known as OCDF, we obviously partner up with other federal partners.
We will be laser focused on the broader transnational organized crime mission. We'll continue to hone our priority targeting efforts, relying on OCDF leaders in the United States Attorney's Office, using the national and regional targeting processes to guide our resourcing, and we'll expand our PTOC program to address growing transnational organized crime threats. OCDF is a synchronizer to lead smart, creative law enforcement agents to get after and solve the problems at hand. OCDF will continue to provide a forward-leaning structure for our partners to work together and leverage each other's strengths.
Obviously, when you have a drug trafficking organization of this magnitude, we talked about 37 people were indicted. We utilize the IRS to exploit the financial investigative leads and work on the financial part of the investigation, and that's why they are collaboratively working this investigation with us. Thank you.
You mentioned that there were 37 people federally indicted. Out of those 37, how many were local? Or like from this area?
It's 17. Yeah,
I think so. It's right in the
indictment. It should be in this. Yeah, it's in the indictment in the press release that we sent out. I can tell you. Give me just a second. I can give you that. Unless one of y'all out there know that exact number.
20?
Do what?
Approximately 20.
Approximately 20. Don't hold me exactly.
Now, like you mentioned, there were 37 people who were federally indicted. And out of those 37 people, there were 20 of those who were actually locally from the area. Now, during
37 people are indicted on drug trafficking charges. 19 of them are from Davis County. Eyewitness who said
thousands of hours of hard work and street-level undercover work later, almost 40 people, half of which are native to Davis County, have been indicted through a Louisville grand jury on Tuesday.
But it is in the press release the U.S. Attorney's Office now. I think it lists where they were from: Owensboro, Louisville, Los Angeles, Utica. I think it lists this one.
One of the individuals of the 19, I think, from Davis County was also loosely tied to the baby line missing child case. Was that something that you guys were aware of when you guys were conducting the search for the infant?
No, ma'am. Not that I'm aware of that.
So I think there were 5 indictments. Were they the people involved in each indictment? Were those kind of separate drug operations you were looking into, or was it all part of one overall?
What happens is when indictments are drafted and made, different people have different roles. And then we talked about how we're able to identify certain networks in Owensboro, certain networks in Louisville. So it's sometimes when they're drafting how they're going to indict it, they go through what the different phases of where the investigation was. And the people in the early phase may have been in certain indictments. And as the investigation develops, there's people that conspire and they're drafted into those indictments, if that makes sense. So hopefully that answers your question.
I'm like a Main Street reporter. I cover just everything, so big crime stuff is not my area. Can you give me an idea of the significance of this overall effort compared to what other things kind of happen throughout the year in the effort against drugs overall?
Well, I can tell you. I'll tell you the impact. I'll go back to one of our cases from 2 or 3 years ago that we worked with them. 2 individuals from Owensboro, and I believe one of them has since 25 years in federal prison. They took it to trial. Those individuals never physically had their hands on the narcotics. Those individuals used others to traffic their product and profit off of it. That has an impact, and that's something I probably had in my notes that I didn't cover, didn't see. But when it comes to that, you almost have to look at drug trafficking organizations like a business. That's the way that they look at them, and there are individuals out there that think that they can keep their hands out of it. They think that they can use other people, they can use vulnerable people, they can use addicts to physically traffic on the street and keep their separation from it. That's what these investigations are for, is to accomplish taking the predators that are using people to profit off of them. So that's.
In the United States, drug traffickers often employ strategies to avoid direct involvement with drugs while targeting vulnerable populations. These traffickers typically operate by creating intricate networks that allow them to distance themselves from the physical handling of drugs. They rely on a hierarchy of operatives, including street-level dealers, couriers, and mules who take on the riskiest tasks. This structure allows the higher-ups to manage the operation from a safe distance, often using sophisticated technology, coded communications, and intermediaries to shield themselves from legal repercussions. Vulnerable individuals, such as those suffering from addiction, poverty, or mental health issues, are frequently targeted by traffickers because they are easier to manipulate and control. These people are often coerced into participating in the drug trade under the promise of quick money or relief from their desperate circumstances. In some cases, traffickers exploit their victims' dependencies or debts, trapping them in a cycle of forced participation. This predatory behavior not only perpetuates the drug trade, but also exacerbates the social inequalities that make these individuals vulnerable in the first place. The exploitation of these groups by drug traffickers in the U.S. is a stark example of how criminal enterprises prey on the most vulnerable members of society to maintain their operations while keeping the true masterminds insulated from direct involvement.
That's the impact of this investigation. That is the impact of when I say from dismantling from the top to the bottom. You may be the individual that just provides money. You know, you want to make a profit off of it. You say that I'm going to provide this amount of money. I'm not speaking specifically this case, but in general, you provide the money for somebody to buy the product and they distribute it out. You may be the one that coordinates the drops. You may be the ones that transports it. You may be the one that doesn't physically touch it and tries to keep your hands from getting dirty. We're still going to get you because you are the ones, those individuals are the ones that are targeting the vulnerable in our community. They're targeting the addicts, the ones that are selling a little bit on the side to supply their addiction, the ones that are out there suffering. They are victimized, the predators are victimized. That's what these investigations do. That's what these investigations accomplish. They let them people know, they let the predators know they're not untouchable. They're not untouchable in this community.
You might worry about this.
The Owensboro Police Department and the DEA out of Indianapolis credit to this colossal victory to the many men and women who spent over 1,000 hours trying to achieve a safer environment for the many communities across the country. Specifically, the investigation was able to intercept a shipment of narcotics headed into Owensboro. This included over 250 pounds of methamphetamine and 25 pounds of cocaine that officials believe would have been distributed in western Kentucky and southern Indiana. Officials also say this operation was about identifying key players in the drug trafficking rings to remove the entire organization. Lieutenant Colonel J.D. Winkler, the deputy chief of Owensboro, noted that during the press conference that there were times where times have changed when dealing with drug rings and trafficking is a lot more connected. He said it was a lot harder to find the direct source of supply, but through the work of numerous law enforcement agencies from across the country, this investigation will save many lives from street drugs in the future. Now, the Owensboro Police Department did also mention that their efforts will not stop in trying to really diminish even more drug trafficking rings in the area, and that this is only just the beginning. Reporting live in Owensboro, Emmy Fazenbaker, 44 News.
Connected with some larger organization that drug cartels do.
Why we get source of supply in California. I've got 2 detectives that are out there working now. So I mean, I think that kind of explains some of the hierarchy now. With the connection to the cartel, I don't know.
Yeah, I think you have to understand when methamphetamine and fentanyl is coming in our country, the major cartels responsible are Sinaloa and CJNG. And obviously they're flooding our communities with this stuff. And obviously, like the deputy chief said, you had a significant source in California. And obviously he was trying to send it here to Owensboro, Kentucky, and we're able to get that. And it's a significant amount of methamphetamine. Like seizing a shipment of 252 pounds, it's a major drug organization that we were able to infiltrate and successfully arrest, and we look forward to going through the judicial process. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
So I know
the Owensboro Police Department made it known that their efforts will not stop in trying to dismantle any other drug trafficking operations, and that this is only just the beginning. Reporting in Owensboro, Emmy Fazenbaker, 44 News.
The Maya Rudd story earlier, but I did want to touch on, this is, to my knowledge, the second really big drug bust this year. How does that compare to other years, and are you worried that, drugs are on the rise here in Owensboro and Western Kentucky?
Well, I mean, it seems like 1-2 of it last January or February. I think we was doing the similar. And I can tell you, our detectives, all of our detectives, this is not the only investigation that is happening at one time. We're already working. We was working on this one when we was finishing up the last one. It is all that you touched on that case. I can say there's myself included. I would say at least 50% of the people in this room have somehow been touched by addiction. I know. I get phone calls. People that I recognize, people that I went to school with, members of this community that die from overdoses, talking to the mothers, the fathers, the brothers, the sisters, the children, the impact that has that addiction has on this community is something that we have to fight for. We have to work on that. So I don't know of any direct relation to that specific case, but I can tell you that it certainly has a significant impact, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Thank you all. Oh, make sure I get the mic back this time.
Professionals of OCDEF have harnessed the resources and expertise of agencies across the country and across all levels of government to collect critical intelligence, build better cases, and take apart transnational criminal organizations. This work is difficult and time-consuming. It calls for constant adaptation in our responses to the ever-changing tactics of complex criminal networks. And it requires true commitment to the cause. I am proud to recognize the professionals of OCDEF for the demanding and often dangerous work they do day in and day out to keep our communities and our country safe. And I am extremely grateful for their dedication, their service, and their sacrifice.
As I was finishing this video, I came across some truly heartbreaking news. A 1-year-old child was shot in Owensboro, the same community where the recent bust took place. The news reports say this was a target attack. While we don't know if there's a direct connection to the bust, the possibility is enough to make us all stop and think. This tragedy is more than just a headline, it's a stark reminder of the real and devastating impact that these dangerous networks can have on our communities. When we talk about these efforts to dismantle these operations, we're not just talking about taking criminals off the streets. We're talking about saving lives, protecting our children, and ensuring that no family has to endure the pain of losing a child to senseless violence. This is why the work being done is so crucial. We have to stop these harmful substances from flooding our neighborhoods and dismantle the operations that perpetuate this cycle of violence. It's not just about enforcement, it's about creating a safer, better tomorrow for everyone, especially the most innocent among us. Thank you so much for watching. Please, if this resonates with you, take a moment to like, share, and subscribe. Hit the bell so you can stay updated on the ongoing efforts to protect our communities and stop this poison from spreading. Together, we can be part of the solution. Together, we can work towards a future where no child has to suffer because of these horrific actions. Stay safe, hold your loved ones close, and let's keep fighting for a brighter, safer tomorrow.
At this hour, we're learning more tonight about an investigation in Owensboro where authorities say a child was shot. 44 News reporter Claire Dugan is live in Owensboro with everything we know so far. Claire?
Yeah, Ben, well, this happened early this morning, about 6:30 a.m., and details are still rather vague, but police have been able to tell us that they believe this shooting was an isolated incident. Now, it happened in the area of Elm Street near West 7th Street. Police say multiple gunshots were fired into a home in that neighborhood. Now, they haven't said why, but they do believe that this specific house was targeted in this incident, but they have not made any arrests and connections to it. Now, sadly, one person was hit. Authorities say a small child inside that house was shot and was taken to a local hospital by ambulance. The child has since been flown to Norton Children's Hospital in Louisville. At last check, that child was reported to be in stable condition. Now, we did reach out to Owensboro Police for more information. They say multiple detectives with the Criminal Investigations Division responded to that scene in what they call an unnecessary act. Authorities also tell us their evidence collection unit came out to process the scene and found multiple shell casings. OPD says they know there are more questions than answers, but for now, they're just asking for patience. Now, again, no one has been charged in this incident, but this investigation is still very much ongoing. So stay with 44 News as we continue to learn more. And if you have any information, you're urged to contact OPD. You can find more contact information for them on our website at WEVV.com. Reporting live in Owensboro, Claire Dugan, 44 News.
Supporting sober living and preventing drug addiction involves a multifaceted approach that includes education, support, community involvement, and access to resources. Here's a guide on how to help keep people away from drugs and prevent more drug addiction. 1. Education and awareness. Educate about risks, share information about the dangers and consequences of drug use, including the impact on health, relationships, and life goals. Promote healthy alternatives, encourage participation in activities that promote well-being, such as sports, hobbies, volunteering, and creative pursuits. Support school programs, engage with local schools to implement or support drug education programs that teach kids about the risks of drug use. 2. Community support and involvement. Create a safe environment, develop a safe and supportive community where individuals can share their experiences and struggles without judgment. Host community events, organize sober activities and events to promote healthy social interactions without the presence of drugs or alcohol. Mentorship programs pair individuals in recovery with mentors who can provide guidance, support, and encouragement. 3. Providing resources. Access to counseling. Make sure that individuals have access to counseling and therapy to address underlying issues that may contribute to drug use. Support groups encourage participation in support groups like Narcotics Anonymous NA, Alcoholics Anonymous AA, or other peer support groups. Hotlines and helplines provide easy access to hotlines where people can get immediate help, advice, and support. 4. Prevention strategies. Early intervention, identify and address risk factors early, such as mental health issues, trauma, or family history of addiction. Build strong relationships, foster strong, supportive relationships with family, friends, and community members to create a network of accountability and care. Promote mental health, encourage practices that support mental health, such as mindfulness, exercise, and regular mental health checkups. Helpful numbers. Here are some important numbers that can be provided to those who might need them. SAMHSA National Helpline 1-800-662 HELP 4357. We're free, confidential, 24/7 treatment referral and information service. National Suicide Prevention Lifeline 1-800-273-TALK 8255 provides 24/7 support for people in distress and resources for prevention and crisis situations. Crisis text line, text home to 741,741. Free 24/7 support for those in crisis via text message. National Drug Helpline 1-844-289-0879 provides support for drug and alcohol-related issues. Alcoholics Anonymous AA, visit the AA website for local meeting information. Narcotics Anonymous NA, visit the NA website for local meeting information. Local resources provide contacts for local rehab centers, counseling services, and community organizations that offer support. 5. Advocacy and policy. Support drug prevention policies. Advocate for policies that focus on prevention, education, and treatment rather than punishment. Partner with law enforcement. Work with local law enforcement to create community programs that focus on rehabilitation rather than incarceration. Promote access to healthcare. Ensure that individuals have access to healthcare, including mental health services, which can be critical in preventing drug addiction. 6. Personal involvement. Lead by example. Live a sober and healthy lifestyle, and be open about your journey to inspire others. Stay connected. Maintain regular contact with those who might be at risk, offering your support and understanding. Encourage responsibility. Help individuals take responsibility for their actions and choices, empowering them to make positive changes. By combining these strategies, you can play a significant role in helping others stay away from drugs, prevent more drug addiction, and provide crucial support to those in need.
Hey, I'm just going to come up quick and give a thank you to all of you who watched, the few in chat, the few that stayed in the background. This is important to me. Drug addiction and selling of drugs has affected my whole life. It's made me who I am today, and this is why I'm here. I want to advocate for that. Listen, digging into this stuff is a little dangerous, so I don't want to dig too far, but I'm going to keep with the public stuff. I'm going to keep on this neighborhood. I'm going to keep following up, paying attention. I'm going to study baby Maya's case and maybe cover her a little bit. I'm also going back to summer. I have to catch up. I've been out of the loop for a few days because this really made me mad when I seen that there was somebody who connected to baby Maya that was arrested in this bust. And I have some questions, like I want to spill the tea. Okay, so I think this is interesting. The Owensboro area is extremely filled with tragedy, crime, trafficking. It's sad. And it's one of those places in America I think needs to be spoken about. And by doing that, we can get a brighter look and perspective on what's going on in America. It needs to be stopped. I don't know how else to stop it. I'm not going to personally dig into these people. I'll show things that are public. I don't want to be offed over this shit. You know what I mean? This is dangerous territory and it goes into the cartel. You heard the DA say that. It's just important to me. But my husband's off tonight, so I'm not going to stay on and stream. I just did this because it's easier than uploading it. Honestly, I think I like streaming better. I don't really like the premiere shit. I can't get on and say bye to you guys like this. So I'm going to sign off. Peace and love. And I will see you guys all Thursday night at 10 o'clock to talk about this and maybe a few other things. I'm going to work tomorrow and figure it out. I'll let you know, but this definitely is at the top of the next live. Peace and love. See you guys then. Thank you for being here.